Hello, Jessamy.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. So happy.
I'm so happy to have you here. It's completely different from my usual recording sessions because we are in Paris.
Yay.
I came all the way to see you,
Yes.
so you better be worth it. No, I'm kidding.
happy
So-
to be worth it.
You are. And yeah, maybe before we introduce you, let's talk about what this episode is going to be about. So we would love to talk about diving a bit into therapy, sex therapy. And before we do that, maybe a trigger warning would be ideal. Anything that you maybe as an expert you could say?
Yeah, I think it's important. Being interested in this topic is very different than having trauma around this topic. So if there are words or phrases that create discomfort or distress, that's something to listen to. And seeking out a professional in your neighborhood is a very important step to preventative and healing work. Yeah. So taking your own initiative around your journey with whatever you have.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we really want to tell you that it's just going to scratch the surface of therapy. This is an introduction for people that maybe had an idea and wanted to maybe seek therapy but didn't. But it's not necessarily where you're going to have all of the answers. So make sure that this is for you. It's also not going to be so much about people that potentially have real needs in terms of medical care or psychoanalysis, just so people know. All right, now that we did this trigger warning, let's get into it. Okay, Jessamy, so can you tell us a bit about yourself? How did you become a therapist?
Yeah, so I originally went to therapy when I first got to Paris in my early 20s and realized the very powerful impact that it had on my life. It was very inspiring for me and kind of gave me a new perspective on my own brain and how my thoughts worked. And I thought, wow, this might be a really powerful way to live your life, helping people to discover the way that their brains work, the way that their emotions work. I've always been very interested in talking to people. I love intimate conversations. I love feeling like I have an insider's view on how people work.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a natural decision. After I did my full course of therapy, I started teaching at the American School of Paris. I was a sex education teacher.
Oh,
And I really loved that. Like I would spend so much longer than I needed to on these different subjects for these young kids. And I thought, wow, pedagogy is really interesting, but I probably should get some training. And so I went to London and got my degree through Middlesex University in sex and relationship therapy. So that was to work with couples as well as individuals.
okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe let's also like backtrack, but even before that, like how did you why did you decide to come to France in the first place?
I had studied abroad when I was in college in Strasbourg, and I loved it so much. Everyone was so nice, it's so beautiful, and my father's British. I have a British passport, so I kind of had like the paperwork settled. I fell in love, and I ended up moving as soon as I could to come to France. Yeah.
So you fell in love in France.
Yeah.
How convenient.
I know. It was great. And I was like, it was a love story and it was a fairy tale and it was very motivating. I think it's a lot of people's stories that they need to be motivated by a big reason to make a big move.
I think so.
And love is normally that reason.
It's the best reason, I think so.
I think so too.
But also I'm delusional, so who am I to judge, you know?
Well, I think a lot of people are delusional when it comes
That's
to
what
love.
keeps me going, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, I understand. I was the same way, and it got me here, and I thought it was going to be for a year, and then it's been 16.
16 years.
16 years, yeah.
Donc tu parles français?
Très bien.
Ah! We love that. Okay, so back to the therapy episode. In terms of clients, how does it work? Did you have to create your own book of business? Are you promoting yourself? Can you promote yourself? Like legally, are you allowed to do that? Or is it a word of mouth?
Yeah, so the way that I built my client base was because I had to do an internship to complete this degree in London. And I didn't want to move to London. I already had my life established here. And I started to talk to other Anglophone therapists asking if they would take me on as an intern, and that people don't really do that here. It's not super legal, I think, to train that way. And so I ended up saying, well, I'm doing really inexpensive very heavily supervised therapy. If you would send me some clients, here and there. And so I ended up building my business from there. It was a full on commitment as of 2020 that I decided to go for it. I started really ramping up during COVID and doing online therapy, and the promotional material kind of ended up being the work that I did through those kind of early on workshops that we did online, with like different collaborations and different talks and stuff, because people were trying to get creative about how to kind of keep working. And so that ended up being kind of promotional material. Now it's totally word of mouth. I mean, yeah, that's the main, and I think most therapists would tell you that.
Yeah.
Word of mouth from clients and then word of mouth from therapists.
Definitely. I mean, even for me, I would definitely take into account someone else's opinion that I value rather than just go on doctor leave and stuff. I think that relationship between a therapist and their clientele is really about, it has to be a win-win solution, but it's also kind of like love, not everybody is meant to be together. And I definitely saw it throughout my whole life when I actually tried different therapy and different therapists. And yeah, one of them was a man, white man, and I was going through a breakup and I was telling him like, but I love the guy, blah, blah, blah. He was like, you're only 30. Like, why are you acting like you're 50? And I was like, you're not for me. I have to freeze my eggs, man. Like, in a few years. Like, what are you talking about?
You don't get it.
No, he doesn't get it. And so I feel like it's also important for people to know that, hey, maybe the first one is not going to be okay, but the second one could be. So, yeah, you said that it's a lot of word of mouth. So now you can actually choose. Have you ever, like, when do you decide that, okay, this person, I want to, have them in my sessions?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I often don't need to refuse clients because they come to me from people who know the work that I do. So I very rarely get cold calls from people who aren't coming from someone who've already seen or from therapists who know the work that I do. I highly recommend people trying therapists. It's a relationship that you need to create with somebody. There needs to be trust.
Yeah.
There needs to be likeness. There needs to be that therapeutic alliance that comes from two humans. We're two humans in the room that are trying to figure out a relationship together. We're creating a relationship. Yeah.
I agree. And in terms of therapy, like when do you think, okay, so we didn't actually talk about your specialty. You specialized in couple therapy?
Yeah. So I specialize in individual sexual health, meaning dysfunction, and couple and relationship work.
Okay.
So often people come to me when they have issues in those realms. And sometimes, often, the work ends up being around other stuff that is impacting how they are in their sexual world. Okay.
And when would you say for a couple, for example, so you would treat the couple as the client, right?
Yes, correct.
When would you say for people who are in a relationship and it's a bit rocky right now, when would that be the right time for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so this is actually changing. I've noticed that before, I would say 5 years ago, couples were coming when there was an external problem, like something to fix, something that they both agreed on was happening to the relationship.
Okay.
And it's a much more post-problem mindset. And now, with the accessibility of therapy, with TV shows like Couples Therapy and En Thérapie, it's much more accessible and societally approved to get proactive, preventative work. So that's the shift that I'm seeing. I think mainly when couples start being in distress for long periods of time, meaning like months on end, they kind of think, okay, maybe we should get some help with this. And there's less stigma around it than there was before.
For me, it reminds me of like just parents, going through like the boomers, I would say, going through some hardship and thinking that they still need to be together. And then when it's like the last straw, they're like, maybe we should ask for external help, but it's already gone. So I'm wondering, have you been in situations where you could literally tell like, you guys need to break up, but you couldn't say that?
You definitely can't say that. But I have been in situations where there's been a huge disillusionment, like an infidelity or an abortion or some sort of
Wow.
big trauma
Yeah.
that has shaken the couple to its core. And then they have to decide in the work that we do I want to revive this? Do I want a second marriage in this marriage? Or do I want a second phase of this couple within this couple? Because often it's asking really hard questions that they haven't had an opportunity to do in a safe environment at home.
Okay, I have two questions. One would be what usually men. Okay, so also one more thing, guys. We're also talking more about heterosexual relationships. So in that sense, usually men, like cis hetero men, what do they go for, on in therapy? And what about women? Like I'm sure that in my head, maybe again it's a stereotype, and we're here to debunk that. But in my head, men would come for, oh, she doesn't want to sleep with me anymore, and it's like altering my love feelings for her. And the woman, it would be more like, feelings, and like, I feel like my feelings are not the same as they used to be, and he's not looking at me.
Yeah. Sure, that's not wrong. I think in general, men come when they feel like they don't know what to do, when there's a problem that they don't know how to fix. And again, kind of going to that external, I can touch something that's wrong, I can see it, and I don't know what to do about it. Often when sex is involved, that's men way of communicating that they want connection, but they don't know how to say that. And so sex gets put on the table as something that's gone wrong, but it's really their way of saying, I don't feel connected to you. I don't feel that deep emotional place is being honored for me, and so I need help with it.
Yeah.
For women, it's, why am I not feeling good inside? Why am I not shining in my life with my partner? And it's much more of an internal, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that sensitivity to our internal messaging is much more attuned with women than it is for men, because they've been socialized to not have that attunement. So
100%.
that gets into a whole like toxic masculinity.
Again, also, like, I'm just me, so correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, that's why you're here. But I also feel like for me, it's a trigger when a man think that his feelings, his love feeling, are only binded by his sex performances. I think that it's two different things, and I don't understand why they are doing that. And on top of it, when you're doing this, you're also putting so much pressure on your partner, because it's like, if you want to love me, you need to suck my, and that's two different things. So is it something that you also try to debunk in therapy with them?
So yes, it is exactly that. It is trying to have men put other words on what their needs are, and to give them a broader frame of understanding how they connect. That there's not there are more options for them to connect with their partner than just physically.
Yeah.
But that's what they've been taught is okay to say they need. So it's teaching them, giving them other language around how to express their needs. What are your asks of your partner?
Yeah.
Like, that question has rarely ever been thought about for people in general, and especially men.
Okay. So basically, it's like teaching a toddler to diversify their vocabulary, basically.
Yeah, and it's hard for me sometimes because I don't want to sound condescending. I don't want to sound like patronizing, like, oh, you don't know what your needs are, or you don't know what your emotions are. Because honestly, these big, powerful, successful, often men come in and they're like, they just don't know what's happening emotionally. Like they have no words. And it's honestly, it's sad. And it's endearing too, because you're realizing that they've been given a very narrow pathway to live their lives and to be successful. It's all very externalized, and it's not very internally reflective.
I think for you, obviously, it's very endearing. For me, it's very annoying. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but being with someone that think their love can only be through sex, it's, you think you're the problem, And I also think that maybe some of the women that came to you came because they thought that they were not normal, because they wouldn't desire sexually the partner. But it's just because the vocabulary between them and the communication is just not the same. And as you said, in society, we've been taught that women are a certain way, cis women are a certain way, cis men are a certain way. And so we don't try to deep dive or to debunk some of the terms that we are listening to for hundreds of years.
Yeah, so this is a really good point because I think men and women do have different ways of expressing their needs, and what therapy can give them is a place to see diversity in those differences and how they express those differences. It doesn't have to be something to fix. It can be something to heal, and it can be something to grow into. And as a couple, at least, there is a space where it's okay not to know. That's what
Yeah.
therapy provides. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, it irks you that men think that there's only one way of
Yeah.
getting their needs met. I totally get that. As a therapist, though, it's hard to see people struggling and to not know
Yeah.
what to do. And so I think, again, when this is the difference between individual therapy and couples therapy, when couples come in and they're going, we have mismatched libidos, what do we do? It's about seeing that as a diversity opportunity instead of something's wrong. You
Yeah.
know, like differences are okay. You're two separate people. You just are. Let's accept that. It's called differentiation.
And on top of it, I'm also wondering because, like, especially France, we're very multicultural, especially Paris. You must have been working with what we call interracial couples, or, sometimes it's also not just about potential race. We don't really say race in French, we say ethnicities, but it could also be like one is richer than the other one. There's a power dynamic, there's an age gap that is quite big. How do you navigate that? Because, for example, in France, for a while, I think he has stopped, but I know that, for example, POCs, Black people, they used to go to Black therapists thinking that they could, understand them better. But do you get those people too? And how do you navigate those intricacies?
Right. So there's a lot of answers in there.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's a big question. I think couples coming from different backgrounds are the funnest to work with because there's so many opportunities for discussion, especially when they're open to each other's cultures. Obviously, it happens where they're not open to each other's cultures, and that's a big problem, but we work with that too. In terms of working with clients from different backgrounds than mine, I make the client the expert, and I say straight up, I don't know much about that culture. Please tell me whatever it is that I need to know. I am very humble about not knowing. That's for sure. And I think that that creates a really safe place for the client to be like, okay, she doesn't know, and I got to tell her, and that it's just very simple. Again, going back to what I was saying earlier, relationally, like we're just two humans in a room trying to make you trying to connect, trying to make you feel better. And by positioning or placing the client as the expert, they feel empowered. And so that empowerment then makes them feel safe and in control.
Yeah.
And so I think I really, really enjoy working with multicultural backgrounds and people who don't look like me or are from a different place than I am, because it makes the work even richer. I'm curious about you, and that makes you feel seen.
Okay. I mean, it's very genuine, but it's also a very good strategy. It's
Yeah.
a very good strategy.
I mean, yeah, tell me why. Yes.
In a sense that I've been in this predicament, right? I've been in a situation where I'm going to go see like a very white privileged man, the one who told me like, oh, you're so young, like, why are you thinking like you're 50? And it's true that I felt very condescending behavior from him, and the only thing I wanted was to leave. Like, my guts were telling me this is not for you, but at the same time it's like he hold a position of authority, so you also gaslight yourself thinking like you're the problem, he's actually right. But no, as you said, we are both humans, and on n'a pas la science infuse. We are not always having the smartest answers, and I think that in your situation you really try to make them understand that, so it kind of have like the same level
Yeah,
at
evens
some
the
point.
playing field.
Exactly,
Yeah,
evens the
yeah,
playing field.
yeah.
But there's so many other people that I feel like should be doing things like you, and maybe more people would stay in therapy, because it's already so hard to decide to go through therapy that when you get like some condescending, backhanded things, you're like, okay, maybe it's not for me at all. Not that this person is not for me, but you're like, okay, I just don't want to be there. And that's what happened to me. you know?
I've had lot of clients come to me because they had a negative experience with another therapist. And it's one of the questions that I ask at the beginning of an intake, like, what happened with that therapist?
Mm,
You know, what can I know about you that went wrong in that way so that A, I don't make that mistake, and B, you feel like I care, because
yeah.
we are in positions of power as therapists and our words do hold weight. And I think it's something to keep being mindful of, because we are in a privileged position where you are opening up and you are being
Yeah.
vulnerable. And if you don't feel seen and then you feel hurt, it hits even harder.
Yeah.
I think in terms of being open to therapy, it is extremely relational. Do you feel safe with that person? And I don't think just because we look different or we're from different places means that you can't feel seen.
Hmm.
Also, because I'm from Hawaii, and in Hawaii there's a bunch of different ethnicities, people all mixing together, I'm very used to talking with people from
Yeah.
different places that look differently than I do, or from different cultures. And
Hmm.
I think it's one of my strong suits. It's something that I never really thought of growing up when I was there would be like a tool or a skill set, but it definitely is. It's something I take a lot of pride in.
It may have helped you a bit as well in France because we're so multicultural. And I know that I would say, like, the basic Americans, when they're coming here and they're like, this is not France because they're seeing black and brown people or Asian and they're like, that's not what I expected, but babes, this is Paris. So I think really you coming from Hawaii and maybe also like in your personal life, you also have like stuff happening, helped you understand
Yeah.
better, but also I think you just have that empathy, you know?
Yeah, I also have learned a lot from my clients who have helped me see that some of the tools that I give them in therapy don't work when they go home to
Mm,
their different backgrounds. For example, well, the main example is that the therapy styles that I've learned are informed by white European men.
yeah.
And so it's being aware of that individualistic culture as the basis for the tools that I'm helping clients with. That culture, that individualistic culture, honoring the individual, prioritizing boundaries, emphasizing emotional intelligence, that stuff hits up against collectivist culture
Hmm.
values, where you need to get in line, you need to be filial piety. The elder is the end all be all. So sometimes what I'm doing with clients in therapy that feels really good for them, living in this society in Paris, when they take it home, it doesn't help actually. And
Mm,
so I think that's a big piece too of what is actually, what are the expectations of myself in different areas of my life? Can I use these skills? And if I can't, what skills can I use? And how do
mm,
I handle the emotions that come up for me when I'm not seen um, as myself as an individual in these collectivist
mm.
cultures?
I was wondering one thing. Your therapy can be forever? Like, do you even, I mean, people can actually decide not to come ever again, but on your side, would you tell a couple, would you tell an individual, we're good, we're done? Would you say that? Because I mean, there's this business part of your business, you know, like you
Sure.
also need to make a living.
Yes.
So how do you navigate being how do we say intègre?
Having integrity.
Having integrity. Don't worry, I'm gonna like
You're good. You're good. It's the same word.
yeah. Having integrity, but also sustain your business.
It's such a good question. I love this question. It's hard.
Yeah.
It makes me, it's a passionate, I have passion for this question because it's a balance between being upstanding and saying, hey, I think the piece of work that we contracted for when you came
Yeah.
in 6 months ago, how do we feel about it? 'Cause I think over here, I think we're good. And then seeing if the client says, yeah, yeah, I think we are good. I have clients who come in. I had a client who came in yesterday and she was like, remember when I came in to see you 4 years ago?
Wow.
Because I had no sexual excitement. I was numb. She was like, last week I told my partner, no. And I thought to myself, I think I'm done with Jessamy. Because she was able to put in boundaries, because she felt
Yeah.
things, and it was like this beautiful thing, because the relationship can end. The therapeutic relationship can end. So it does happen where I say, how are we feeling about the piece of work that you originally came in for? And they say, I think we're good. And then we say, okay, let's do an ending session for some closure. And then they move on.
And what is the ending session? Cakes and coffees?
It's normally where have we started and where are we now, looking for some timeline, just some major takeaways, and just acknowledging what worked and what didn't work. And again, going back to that human to human, like we have a relationship. I have created a bond with you, a boundaried bond under a certain context, but I am also wanting to be taken care of in this relationship now that it's ending this chapter.
So the closure is not only for the individual or the couple, but it's also for you.
Yeah, it's for the relationship that we've created.
Do you grieve sometimes, like some of the
Yes.
bonding relationship that you have?
Oh, big time. Yeah, because I'm invested. I really care about you, and I really want this to go well for you. It'll happen often with couples where they'll drop off the face of the earth because of whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I've had to really do a lot of thinking about it, taking it to supervision, taking it to colleagues. Like, what do you do when clients who you care about and you've done really good work with don't come back? And it's important to let these people know, the couples and individuals, that I'm also a person, and we've created a thing together, and I don't want to feel like I'm just been left hanging. It's also an example to show them that they need to take care of one another and take care of me. Not in a way that's unboundaried, but in a way of let's just be kind to one another and send me an email, So it's happened where I won't hear from a couple and I'll say, hey, just checking in. Are you intending to come back? If so, let me know. And if not, I'll contact you in 3 months. And if I don't hear back from you, I'll put your file aside.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to remind that, because I think that sometimes we see it so much as a service that we forget that there's actually a human being behind that. And you talked about you talked about supervision. I was actually going to ask you, how do you sustain mental health after everything you hear? Because I would be drained. I am already drained. Like, I'm doing the fake therapies for my friend. And I think it was after the pandemic, I was really not feeling well about myself either. I just didn't have that bandwidth. And that was the first time in my life that I was like, guys, like, I literally cannot listen to you because I just don't have it in me. And I felt really bad, but at the same time I felt like, yeah, I'm putting my boundaries. But how is it for you? Because how many hours do you put on a day?
Oh man, yesterday was 9.
Oof.
Yeah, so that's too much. I think on average, 4 to 5 clients a day.
1 hour
1
per
hour
client?
sessions, yeah. That's
You
what
never
I
do more than 1 hour per
Sometimes
client?
I'll have couples who come in for an hour and a half or 2 hours, but that I see less regularly. I have an amazing supervisor who I've been working with for 5 years. I see her every other week. She's part of an ecosystem of support that gives me that kind of subconscious knowledge that if I did need help, I could find it very easily. So that's a big thing. It makes me also think about the business part of the equation, like you asked earlier. This is a business. I'm running a business, even though it's kind of gross to think about it like that sometimes.
They are grosser businesses.
Right. Well, and it's because there is so much of an emotional attachment and that kind of unconditional positive regard. When the monetary aspect comes in, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's congruent with those really kind of safe and open feelings, but it is, because it keeps us boundaried. And there's a start and a stop, and there's an exchange. And that's very important for the ethical piece of therapy. So I find stamina around knowing that this is a service. I am being paid for it, and I need to show up 100% for that hour that I'm with the client. And then when they walk out the door, I can say to myself, I really showed up. I did as much as I could for that person in that hour. And now it's up to them to continue on the work. But I can metaphorically close the door at the end of the day and say, I did a good job today. I did all that I could for the hour that I was with that person. And now I need to go and live my own personal life.
Okay. And Okay. Have you ever felt within that specific day, for example, that 1 hour was like, oh, I'm so happy to see that person and see where they're going and what they are up to. And on the other hand, some you're like, oh, yeah, get me out of here. Like, I know it's going to be such a suffering, moment.
Yes. More so for the first part. I mean, I am so lucky. I have such amazing clients and they give me energy. And when I do have thoughts of, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a long day, it's normally because I haven't taken care of myself. I'm tired, the kids, the taxes, the whatever. It's my stuff. It's not the
Mm,
client stuff. So I really try to bring myself back. Like when I have those thoughts, I think, okay, I this is my stuff that's coming into the room. I need to bracket it and put it elsewhere and really try to show up for the client. Um, or maybe I'm asking the wrong questions for this client that's not interesting me enough to stay present. Like
mm,
I really try to think about me because you're coming in as the client with whatever you've got that day.
mm,
And it's up to me to ask the right questions and to tune myself into you to understand what's going to make us both have an interesting or beneficial
mm.
conversation. So I really try to take it on myself. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it was like a lot of nice insights. I'm trying to be wary of the time because we do have listeners who gave us a lot of questions.
Yes, yes, yes.
But for the second part, the first part for me would be how can we demystify some of the popular terms that people are talking about? And honestly, it's all over TikTok. And for the first time, I actually want to run them through you. So the first one would be actually trauma bonding relationship. I think that people are kind of in the know when it comes to narcissistic perverts, but they don't know about trauma bonding. What would be the first to be addressed? Is it trauma bonding and then it results into perverse narcissistic tendency, or vice versa, or not at all? It can be also dick related.
Yeah. So okay, let's just define trauma bonding.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not two people who have bonded over a trauma. It is a bond that is created between a person and another person,
Okay.
a victim and abuser, if you want,
Okay.
where the intermittent positive reinforcement comes when the person is feeling weak or unsafe. So I often explain this as um, an extremely powerful, addictive emotional experience that's very difficult to get out of once you're
Mm-hmm.
in it. A traumatic bond is an unhealthy bond where you are counting on the approval and the love of a person once they've made you feel bad about
Okay.
yourself.
Thank you for the definition because even I had the wrong one. Um, can you see that in a therapy session? Can you see who's the abuser and the abused person? And as you said earlier, those person remain a couple, so one client for you. How can you tell the abused person, hey, there are some red flags there, while trying to maintain a certain okay relationship with both?
It's a super tricky one. I think it's the most difficult situation to be in as a therapist
Mm,
because the client comes in to see you as a couple. So you're trying to treat or be helpful for the third entity that they've created, but it negates the possibility for healthy reattachment
mm-hmm.
because you're working with a dynamic where there's addiction and trauma, and so the basis of the dynamic is very toxic.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had in the past 5 years, I've probably had 2 or 3 clients come in where the trauma bond has been so explicit that we've had to end therapy. But it's actually normally a natural ending because the abuser sees that I see it. And
Mm.
so they find excuses for either not liking me or not having enough money or not having enough time. And the relationship kind of
Fizzle out.
fizzles out. Yeah.
Mm.
And that's one of the characteristics of trauma bonding is that the abuser, which is also the case for the narcissistic
Mm-hmm.
abuse, um, selects who the couple spends time with, who the
Yeah, to
victim
keep
spends
control.
time to keep control. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's a manipulation and it's isolation.
And can you be not a narcissistic but still be an abuser? Or it's okay. So it can be completely separate. Okay. And what is a real narcissistic pervert like? What are the red flags that we should maybe look into?
So it's someone who has a very hard time taking criticism, someone who will deflect and negate and gaslight, who will manipulate, and who at all costs will make you feel like you are the one that's done something wrong. And this can be very nuanced. It can be done very subtly. It can be done through convincing, but it can also be done through shouting. It really, it's someone who can really prey on the brain's primal
Yeah.
safety centers. So if I don't feel safe, I'm going to make myself feel safe somehow by convincing myself that this person is right.
And do you feel it in your core as well when this is happening in front of you? And can you help the person, or again, you have to remain very neutral?
I can see it for sure. I try when I see it as a couple. Yeah, I try to remain neutral, but it often happens. Well, especially in these three cases I'm thinking about, where this, excuse me, the sisterhood element will come out. It's often the man who's the
I wanted to ask, but I was like,
in the
it's
couples
gonna
that
be
I've
yeah.
seen, in the couples I've seen, it's been the man,
Yeah.
who is the abuser, and I've taken the woman aside either at the end or at the beginning and said at the beginning of a session, or we'll do a separate session together, and I'll say something like, how is it for you to be in this relationship?
Okay, but again, like you tiptoeing around the bush,
Yeah.
you can't really say, "Hey, that guy is a narcissist."
No.
Okay, because like
But
we
you
do
can
that.
suggest. You can say, so here are some of the characteristics of narcissism. Would you say that I try not to be too pied en plat? I try to be pretty. It's difficult to hear those things, and if you're not open to hearing them,
Yeah, it's true.
it ends up damaging the therapeutic
I mean,
relationship.
I've been in this predicament. I was with someone that I would qualify it as a narcissistic pervert. And there's so many things, so many red flags that it said not to look at. And I dragged him into therapy thinking that this could be really like our, save us. But at the end of the day, it was already doomed because he literally came to therapy to weaponize everything that I was saying and to use that against me. And again, I was still here. I think that the lesson that I've taken from this relationship that lasted at least like 4 years, love yourself more than you love your relationship. Like, understand that you are the baddest bitch in town and listen to your guts, because I think that even in my body there were so many signals that I decided to ignore because maybe out of fantasy, maybe out of delusion as well, and what it represents. I was not so keen on looking at what's happening in front of me, but more the premise of what could be our relationship together. But there were no future actually, because I was already being abused in the present.
Yeah. I think, speaking of red flags, one of the main ones is gaslighting and love bombing and belittling or like manipulation, like lack of empathy, not feeling like you're seen or you're getting any validation from your partner about what they've done.
Yeah.
Those are the main things to keep in mind. If you feel those are happening, and if you feel like the relationship is really only good when they are happy with you, then it's not necessarily a healthy bond.
Yeah, I think what I can say on my side, obviously I'm not the expert, but the relationship shouldn't be lovey-dovey only when they want to. And you shouldn't have to work twice as hard to make it work. So that would be my advice to people that think that maybe they are being in a trauma bonding relationship or with a narcissistic. It's like, take a step back, look at yourself. Are you feeling okay with yourself? Like, I looked at some of my former pictures and I was like, girl, you're ugly. Girl, you are ugly, because I realized that I was just not there for myself, And so look at all of those small signals that either the universe or your own body is trying to give.
Yeah. I think it's a really difficult thing when you are in that addiction cycle, though, because what feels really uncomfortable is to look at what's actually happening. And so you go towards the person in order to feel
Yeah.
calm. And that calm is coming only when they're giving you praise. And so it's finding calmness within yourself.
Yeah.
Can I self-soothe? Can I regulate my system without needing this other person to be okay?
Yeah.
And I think it's important also to think about it as a scale. Like you can be in an unhealthy dynamic in a relationship and not necessarily mean that it's a trauma bond. That you can have love bombing and that you can have some of these red flags and not necessarily have it mean, oh, I am in a traumatically bonded relationship,
Yeah.
you know? And that's where maybe some therapy could help, like where you have an external perspective to say, you know, how are you actually feeling, essentially, you know?
I was wondering one thing. I think that you therapists in general have a little bit of competition these days because people decide, maybe out of fear or maybe because they don't have a lot of financial aid, to turn to AI. What's your take on AI?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point that it's competition, but at the same time, it's competition that's based on writings and things that are already out in the world from therapists who have written things. So it's drawing knowledge from real knowledge. And I think it can be quite helpful. I have a client who writes in his AI diary every day, and he's been doing it for many years. And so he'll tell his AI therapist, as my therapist, I want you to take this role,
Yeah.
and this is the tone that I want you to take. And because you have all of this data on me, I want you to tell me, what are my weaknesses? What are my blind spots? How can I improve myself in ways that I don't see? Like I think it's really how you treat the tool.
Yeah.
But knowing that it is a tool that you can decide how you want to incorporate it into your life or not. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily.
Okay.
If you're actually investing time and energy into spending educating the tool, it can help you because it's drawing from real resources.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like instead of fighting against it, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
People are turning to it. So we might as well think about how we can use it positively, incorporating.
I have another take on it. I would say don't do it.
Okay.
Because I tried, and honestly, it got me in more trouble than it should. Because I think that,
interesting.
yeah, like I remember I remember it was 2 weeks ago. I was dating a guy, and okay, I'm saying so many things. We'll see if I cut it out or not. But we had sex, and then for 5 days straight, didn't get an answer. And I was pissed because it's like, I welcomed you in my home. I don't do one night stands. You know that. I gave you my boundaries. I gave you my love languages. What are you doing? And then you come back like a flower. I mean, it's a French say, so I don't think you can really translate that. But basically, he came back as if nothing happened. He was like, oh, how was your weekend? And AI was telling me, like, no, you tell her, girl. You tell her that you don't like that. You put your boundaries. And I think that if it was only me, I would have first said, like, hey, yeah, my weekend was nice, but, I felt so and so about you not really reaching out. But like the way the AI trained me, it was more like be upfront, which I understand, but I think there's a time and a place. And when someone already took 5 days, you kind of know, you have your answer. So do you really need to be confrontational like this, or shouldn't you drop? And I didn't. I was confrontational, and then it was endless messages to the point where I decided not to talk to him anymore. I would have done it eventually, but I think that this confrontational energy was not needed.
But there's a very different message there between using your AI diary to give you insights and asking it for advice. As a therapist, I don't give advice.
True.
I just mirror things and ask you how you feel about them.
True.
And then from there we get data, and then you do what you want with the data. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it sounds like you weren't using the AI therapist.
So I'm the problem.
Well, I mean, you it's a slippery slope,
Yeah.
right? And I think, like you said earlier, being in tune with yourself, when you can read the signs internally, first of all, it's already
Yeah.
a great skill set that you have. And second of all, it's the biggest tool that you have. So we've got our first brain up here, our second brain's in our guts, and our third brain's in our pelvic floor, our sexual organs. So using all three of those brains to give you information. And the AI is just up here. It's just giving you
Yeah.
intellect, but it's not you reading from your gut or from your third brain, sexual organs.
I felt it was very insidious because it was like, oh, you must feel anxious. I was like, girl, you don't know me. You don't know my life. Like, don't act like you do. I think it can be very detrimental for people that are maybe not having so much confidence and would turn to them as like a friend, like you would do to a friend. So this is why for me, potentially the way your client is using it is the best way and the only way. But when it comes to advice, speak to your friends, trust your guts, but don't go on AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're collecting information. So you could get your AI opinion, you could get your girlfriend's opinion, you could get your parents' opinion, you could get your coworker's opinion, and then you are the one
Yeah.
taking responsibility for the choice that you actually end
Yeah.
up
And I
using.
feel like therapy is about that. It's like when I didn't do therapy, I was mostly like asking all of my friends everything and they knew everything. And then especially with that guy, when things were going well, they knew, but when things were turning sour, they would know as well. And then it would be such a problem for them to understand because they'd be like, but you told us so many bad things about him. Why are you still with him? So I think that therapy empowered me to really trust my gut more than having all of my girlfriends' opinion and acting on them. Yeah.
But wouldn't you say that that's because of the therapeutic alliance that you had in that therapy? Like it was a training ground for you to be able to be more assertive with your opinions
100%.
and to say what you needed and to say what was working and to give your therapist feedback,
Yeah.
like that's part of the place where you learn, and
Yeah.
it's a safe space for you to try out different ways of being in relationships. So you don't get that with AI, right?
No, we don't.
No.
Maybe premium. Maybe I'm just a cheap
Maybe
bitch, like
when
maybe
you spend more money.
you do premium, you get better because I think that even AI, like ChatGPT AI, the freemium part hasn't been updated for some time, so it's not the best. We kind of running out of time, and I think that there's another really good topic that I would want to discuss with you, which is the sex therapist part.
Yes.
Again, I think maybe we should have like a little bit of a trigger warning for this one. So, obviously, what is interesting for me, and that's my podcast, I'm sorry, guys, but would be the heterosexual part. But again, I think, would you say that there's maybe like a other trigger warning that you would want to add to it?
This is a really tricky subject for people. So if you have tapping into your internal knowledge, if you have stuff around this, it's okay. But maybe take a second and check in with yourself. Like, do I want to hear more about this? Or is there something that I need to maybe take a pause?
Okay, thank you for that. I think we kind of know now, like through therapy, and you talked about also like the fact that some men would come for like external problem. We already know that, but maybe if you could give us like just two example of what men would come to sex therapy and what women would want to come to sex therapy.
Sure. So women often come for understanding themselves more. Why do I feel the way that I feel? What's happening internally? What are some of these doubts about? And how can I learn more about myself?
Okay.
Men are much more reactive. So I couldn't get hard. What's going on? Panic. And
Yes, panic.
that happens. A lot of my male clients come in because something didn't work.
Okay.
So again, externally, there's a problem. I need to fix it. And that's how they're trained, right? I need to solve. I need to know. I should know, and I don't know. And so help. That's the main difference.
And I'm sure that you wouldn't even be the first person that they would go for. Like maybe they would turn to Viagra, for example.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Doctors, and it's impressive how fast you can you
All
can,
of a sudden.
Yeah, all of a sudden, yeah.
You know all of them.
No, it's impressive how fast you can get someone to make 5 doctor's appointments and go to the pharmacy and see a sex therapist, and within like the course of a week when they don't have the right sexual experience.
Shout out to Dr. Lieb.
Totally. Good job, all those doctors.
I do think that we should tap into the problems that we have nowadays, which is like, for example, sex performances. The fact that there's a little bit of a disconnect between men and women on that part, and that men think that their manhood really is about performances, when sometimes women, not all of them obviously, but most of them just want a connection, an emotional connection with their partner. And so you end up in situations where during an intercourse, like someone is really like, let me rub that clit. And the other person is like, I just want to look at you in the eyes and like see that we're connecting and making one, you know?
Yes. So much to say about this.
Mm,
So, I guess my initial response is women, like men, are looking for connection, and they often feel that they will be able to be more connected if they are desirable. And so it's this kind of, am I wanted? Are you choosing me? Am I doing what I think makes you like me?
mm-hmm.
And for men, it's, am I making you feel good? Am I making the right moves here? What am I doing to make this something that you want to do again? So again, more of like a desirability on the women's end, where I should want to like coax you in so that you choose me and that you stay with me.
Mm-hmm.
And men are in the performing, doing, making things happen
Mm-hmm.
of sex. And that is probably from defined roles that we see in pornography
Yeah.
and movies, in social cultures, TikTok, Instagram, all these things about the men being the ones that are kind of the performative, bigger energies, and the women that are like the coquettish, more nuanced, subtle, but also very mysterious,
Yeah.
attraction
Yeah.
based. Yeah.
I mean, we're speaking about sexual beings, okay? There are others that are not. They won't be the topic, obviously, today. But when it comes to being sexual, or feeling sexual, or being aroused, I think that whether it's on cis hetero men or cis hetero women, we both feel the need, we both want to have sexual connections. But you said one time something to me that I was like, oh my God, I can relate. You said that women were kind of like waves and men needed to know how to surf them, because in waves you have like those really big ups, and I would say maybe it's the peak of our arousal, and like they should really try to ride that wave. And there are moments where maybe because of work, maybe because of something else, we just don't want to be touched at all. There are some people that it's just wave, 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 wave too, like let's
Sure.
acknowledge that. But most of us women, hetero women, we mostly like waves.
So important. Knowing how our bodies work physiologically is a huge key
Mm-hmm.
to having successful sexual intercourse, but also just like a successful relationship with your sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
So, men have a much more beginning, middle, orgasm, finish, right? This is the whole model of like
Yeah.
foreplay leads to orgasm, leads to afterplay or like
Mm-hmm.
sleep. And women are much more cyclical, and we can kind of come up and go down and come up and go down, and that gives us energy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're two very different ways of being sexual together.
Mm-hmm.
And those two don't necessarily go together if you don't have a conversation about what is it that makes you able to stay in this space with me. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you just if you're a guy and you just have an orgasm and you go to sleep and I'm like still ready to go, I'm not going to feel satisfied at the end of the
No.
day. So knowing that men are able to have an erection on average under 2 minutes, and women take on average 90 minutes to become fully engorged. Their whole clitoral wings and their external clitoris and their labia take 90 minutes to become fully
Okay.
engorged. So this is where responsive arousal comes in versus spontaneous arousal.
Yeah.
This is Emily Nagoski, and the Come As You Are book is super helpful for this, of understanding that often women fall in the category of responsive arousal where they need time to feel stimulus, turn them on.
Mm-hmm.
And spontaneous arousal is an image comes into my mind, or a thought comes into my head, or I see something that's
Mm-hmm.
attractive and I'm like ready to go. Not always, but men often are in that category. And women are much more often in the responsive arousal category, where they need to have time to ease into that arousal, and they can get just as aroused, and it's just as experience
Yeah.
wonderfulness and magic and all the things. But that if they're not given that time, they're not wet enough, they're not open enough, they're not safe enough, essentially, for their musculature to open.
And like across all of the people that you've seen for sex therapy, would you say some were really mismatched and you know that forever and ever it will never work? Or do you feel like through the therapy that you were giving to them, some were actually able to finally connect on a deeper level?
Definitely able to connect on a deeper level. When you start to talk about why you're having sex emotionally, what the intimacy is about, you're able to connect physically much better. And I really like Jaya's blueprint here, where they talk about the 5 different ways that you are naturally disposed. When I learn about your blueprint, it's going to help me to understand how to approach you. So, this is a way that we can understand that we're each individuals and that first of all, I need to know what turns me on. I need to know how I'm turned on. That's me. That's on me to know.
Okay.
Is it energetic? Is it kinky? Is it more physical? There's lots of different ways to get turned on. And if that's not how you're initially turned on, I need to know that. So you need to communicate that to me.
And I want to add, guys, please, because I'm so done, like, ask for consent. There's so many small things that for me can be an ache. Like, for example, you're sleeping with someone and they kind of like rubbing behind you. I get it. Sometimes it can work because I think we have like erogenous zones there. And if you're really in tune with your partner, it can work. But sometimes when you just know the guy and then instead of being like, hey, I'm in a mood for this, they're just doing that to you, it's icky and it's gross and you don't even feel like your body belongs to you. So like I think consent, as much as we are saying, but it's true, it's very sexy. Like I had once a night with a guy, and before having an orgasm, he was like, hey, can I come? I was like, okay, that's new, but I like it. You know, it's like you're trying to bond with me, even in this very individualistic part of your sexual moment, you know? So just more consent, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And asking, like, what do you actually like? And that's so simple. There's this great marriage family therapist named Martha Kauppi, and she does a whole thing on skills. Like you need to have skills to be able to show up.
Mhm.
And one of those skills is, what do you like? Asking your partner, what do you like? And that's a turn on.
It's such a simple task, but I feel again on my side as a woman, it hasn't been either answered or reciprocated. Like it's so hard for them to really put themselves in someone else's shoes. How many times have I ever had like an intercourse with someone and they don't even ask me, can I do anything for you?
So a lot of that for me has to do with not wanting to seem like they're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Like by having to ask, they think that it means that they don't have the skills to do it right. So if they're asking, it means that they're somehow not as good, like they're lesser. And that seems like it's not okay. But actually, it's the opposite. By asking, you show that you are connected.
And you
So
care.
performance isn't connection. Communication is connection. And it's not about doing the right moves at the right time in the right way. It's about creating something together.
Yeah.
And so because we're doing something together, I need to know what you're bringing to the table.
And also, it's all about trust, right? I feel like the more communication you have, the more trust you have in the person, and the more freaky the sex is, you know? Because you're like, I can totally really be myself because this person is seeing me. He's also reciprocating the energy. And yeah, I just want to tell that to cis hetero men, do that, you will see your sex life is going to get better.
The main takeaway for me, like if I was to give one thing
Mm-hmm.
to people, it would be safety. If you feel safe, if you feel emotionally safe, if you feel intellectually safe, if you feel physically safe, you're going to have the best sex with that person. That can be one night stands, that can be polyamory, that can be 20 years of marriage. You have to feel safe with that person. And if you don't, your body's going to close up.
Okay, what do we think about one night stands? Is it for everyone?
One night stands are really a beautiful topic because they get a lot of bad rap. Honestly, nothing's wrong with a one night stand. It's giving you, if you're up for it, if you feel emotionally, again, healthy, and you're coming at that experience with consent and with open-mindedness, it can be a great place to discover,
Mhm.
to explore, to not have a lot of baggage underneath, to not have to deal with a lot of the stuff that comes with relationships. It can be a great place to explore yourself and your sexuality in a way that you don't necessarily get in a relationship.
Okay, from a scientific point of view, is it true that women get attached after having sex? And so, how do you deal with that when it's just a one night stand and you knew that from the get go, but deep down you can't help it and you still have like a little thing inside of you that is like, ah, you know that guy is not for you, but there's like a part of you that is like, ah.
So, okay, when you say scientific point of view, you mean like the dopamine and the
Mm-hmm,
serotonin and the
mm-hmm,
oxytocin. Okay, so
mm-hmm.
when we orgasm as
Yeah.
women, those hormones and neurotransmitters flood our system with committed, secure attachment feelings. It floods the system and it washes over us, and it can end there.
Mm.
We don't have to then lean into those feelings. That's when our prefrontal cortex takes over.
Okay.
And you say, okay, I feel these feelings. That was a positive experience. Good job. Good job, me. Good job, us. Now, what is actually happening here in terms of, in the morning, in the daylight? Is this actually a good match for me? Am I a place where I want to be in a relationship? Like, I think our bodies are powerful machines,
Mm-hmm.
and they give us a lot of information and they give us a lot of signals. But we're also equipped with a brain that has a prefrontal cortex and higher executive functioning, where we can then mitigate some of the messaging that we're getting from our body.
So that would be one of the tips that you would say to have like a healthy relationship with sex, whether it's with you, whether it's other people. Any other tips in order to really remain healthy and always in the best mental shape?
Yeah, sex comes first and foremost from yourself. So if I'm in a place where I don't feel good about my body, or I don't feel like I'm getting what I need emotionally from myself when it comes to sex, then I need to look at that. I shouldn't be trying to solve that through relationship. That's the
Okay.
main one.
hmm I have a lot of questions from listeners, so we're going to try to tackle them. But one that is very funny for me, one person said, a woman, I'm a feminist, but when I'm in bed, I love to be dominated. Is there something wrong with me?
No. No. You can be a feminist and want to be dominated.
Okay.
How
But
why
isn't
why
that
would
like
those
tapping
be?
into patriarchy?
So when we start to shame our arousal, you get into really tricky territory.
Mm.
And I think that's where the kink and the BDSM community is really important, that there are places that are consensual, that are feminist encouraged, and are really important safe spaces for us to explore arousal in a way that's not shaming, because everyone is there with consent. So you can want to be dominated and ask for that. And if you don't feel shame about it, then you actually get the pleasure.
Okay.
If you do feel shame about that, that's something you can work on, something that you can bring to therapy, or something that you can bring to the sexual space. But it doesn't necessarily, because you like something doesn't mean that you need to feel shame around it.
All right. But when we think about, even porn, there may have been like some kinks that didn't even exist before, but because of porn, they existed and they're getting twistier and twistier. And when do you tell a client, like maybe, hey, this is maybe rooted in something deeper than just a kink? Maybe something happened to you in your childhood. Maybe that's what you should look into and that's why you are interested in this kink, or you just don't shame at all, ever.
So my gauge for whether or not something needs to be addressed is if it's causing distress. If the client is coming with a kink that's distressing them, then we can talk about it and break it down. I think it's the individual's ability to rationalize and understand that our sexual inclinations aren't always bad. They're not always something to be negatively looked upon.
Mm-hmm.
Arousal is a very personal thing, and that's okay. You can share it if you have consent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can also keep it to yourself. But it's when the distress element comes in or when the shaming element comes in that it's something that I think can be addressed in therapy. But I definitely don't shame. I mean, it's not I think one of the main therapeutic alliance tenets is non-judgmental.
All right. And if you could help us a bit more and get to know our body, we kind of feel like we know everything about the originals, myth. But is there anything that we don't know? Like, even men, like we say that sometimes even as a cis hetero man, pegging could be beneficial for them, and it's such a taboo right now. But whether it's men, whether it's women, are there any other erogenous parts that we should know about that we should try to explore, whether it's on an individual level or in a couple relationship?
Yeah. So I think knowing how your body works, again, there's the individual understanding before you can share it is really important. So Emily Nagoski in The Come As You Are, she talks about the not finding the button, but discovering the landscape. That we have a whole landscape of erogenous zones and they're interconnected. They're not just in our sexual reproduction organs, they're also all over our bodies. And I think we don't necessarily explore that enough because we don't have models for how to do that. We're not taught that
No.
that's okay. And so that's a really beautiful journey that a couple can take together. It's also on the individual to take their own responsibility for their pleasure. And so that can be, for women, it's often reading sexy books and feeling where that comes up in their body, getting some other medium outside of their own bodies to help them be inspired to discover their own bodies. So like, oh, I really like that sex scene in that book, or that really turned me on in that TV show that I watched. Maybe I'm going to masturbate thinking to that next time. And maybe I'm going to like think about sex in a different way, or maybe I'll try
Yeah.
that position and oh, that actually feels really good. I think a lot of the times in sex therapy, I suggest different things and people are like, oh, I never even thought about that. For example, people often don't know that the clitoris goes all the way back into the vagina.
Yeah, so you mean that the vaginal orgasm is actually the clitoris doing that? Yeah.
That all of those sensors, all of those erotic zones are nerve endings that are interconnected and that need the blood flow. This goes back to the 90 minutes. It needs the blood flow in order to feel spontaneous, to feel aroused, not spontaneous, to feel aroused. So you need to be able to connect to those parts of your body because the physiological element is there. And the only way that the blood flow will go there is if you feel safe.
And do you think that someone like a person with a vagina and a clitoris who for their whole life only been having orgasm through, I don't know, being eaten out or whatever, can actually once or maybe other times experience vaginal orgasms?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay.
Again, it's rewiring your body to having new experiences. So if you are running the same track over and over again, we know that track, and you're like, yep, I can orgasm on this track. If you step into the field and you try to run around the field, it might feel uncomfortable at first, but then you're going to find your way. And maybe with some help, you'll be able to create new patterns and new ways of being sexual with yourself.
Just like men and pegging.
Just like men and begging.
How do you that was so not subtle. But like how would you introduce that to men? Like, do you think that there's so many things that they're kind of ashamed of that they would actually enjoy? Do you sometimes recommend like, hey, maybe you should try that?
I hardly ever recommend things to men because often they're coming in because of emotional
Okay.
problems more so than physical problems. But it does happen where they haven't been exposed to things before, and I suggest that they go and do some research.
Okay. And okay, so if I understand correctly, there's no right way to actually ask someone if they want to be pegged.
No, but you can say, would this be something that you're interested in doing?
And when it comes to those myths like G-spot, what would that be for men and where would that be for women?
So these are areas of the body that for men are in the prostate
Okay.
and for women are in the vagina.
So anal for men, vagina for
Vaginal for women. Yeah. And like we know, we're born with these, or created, let's say, in utero with the same physical blueprints.
Some way, somehow.
And it's manifested physically differently. So we both have these erogenous zones. It's not a matter of necessarily finding that one zone and being like, oh, I found it, eureka. It's inviting exploration. So it might be a eureka, I found it moment, but in order to get there, you're going to have to do some exploring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of it, you need to be really trustworthy with your partner. So that can take a lot.
Yeah, safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a great couple doing this work around anal play called The Pleasure Mechanics. They have a really great podcast and website where they're really debunking a lot of the myths around anal sex.
I think at the end of it, anyways, like when we're going to promote this episode, I think I will ask you for, some kind of books and podcasts. And since we couldn't like tackle all of sexual orientations, if you do have also clients that are on the other side of the spectrum and you already recommended some, studies or books, I think it would be nice for people so they can also feel included. I want to ask you, but I don't know if it's like too private or not, so you tell me, but how being a sex therapist helped you in your own personal journey?
I often come home to my husband and I'm like, you're amazing.
I wish I could say something like that.
I mean, I'm very lucky to have someone who just checks a lot of the boxes. And I think when I'm working with couples or with individuals with sexual dysfunction, because I'm a human too, I take away lessons and I think about how they apply to my life and I try to make my relationship stronger. I think it's been difficult throughout the years to not compare sometimes and not to take away like, oh, maybe I should be doing that, or maybe my life could be better if I did that, or, X, Y, and Z. But I think at the end of the day, I feel very lucky to channel the energy that I do get from my work into the relationship that I have with my husband.
How long have you been together?
14 years.
Wow, that's a long way to go. It's so easy to kind of lose ourselves in a relationship, especially after kids. How do you maintain like a healthy relationship, a certain level of communication and sexuality, if we can talk about it?
Yeah. So the main thing I think that he would also agree on if he was here is intentionality. Like when you're together, not having your phones out, not watching something, like really trying to be present with each other. Daily work, like small things often is one of the main go-to phrases. Bids for connection, like how do I try to connect with him and how does he try to connect with me, and meeting those bids. That's the Gottman Institute. One of their main takeaways is how you show up for the person when they're asking for you to show up.
Show up. Sorry.
So that's one of the main things. I'm used to him by now. And so we've got to find ways to keep it interesting, trying to find newness. Play is really important. Seeing your couple outside of the normal, like day-to-day grind, putting yourselves in situations that are different so that you can see yourselves in different situations. Even coming to this podcast, he was like, that's so fun. Like you're doing a new thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a new thing, So yeah, so I think it's really trying to keep that admiration going. You can always discover something about another person, even if you've been together for a long time. So like curiosity, play, lightness is really important. Keeping that lightness so that you want to spend time with that person. That's often why people search for things outside of their marriage, is because things have just gotten boring and dull and not fun. And so of course we're going to go towards things that are fun and are light. So
yeah. Do you believe once a cheater, always a cheater?
no.
Okay.
I don't. I don't believe that because I think it's really relational.
Yeah.
It depends on the relationship that you're in and how you invest in that relationship. If you were cheating before and you are in a relationship where you feel like you really want to not do that again and you have had enough negative emotion that comes from cheating, you can change your behaviors. People can change.
But they have to want that for themselves.
But they have to want that for themselves, and it has to have had a big enough impact. The cheating has had to have a big enough impact in order for them to want to not do that again.
Okay, so you're basically saying like don't take them back right away. Like they need to suffer.
Yeah. Well, there needs to be
They need to take accountability.
yes,
That's the best way to say
right.
it.
They need to take accountability. They need to take responsibility. They need to validate what they did, but also you need to be able to hear, why did you do that? What were you looking for outside of the relationship? You know, what
And
was it that you're
yeah.
trying to search for?
And maybe also like not be resentful for the rest of the relationship.
Yeah.
Like if you decide to take them back, then you need to also acknowledge that, okay, this was the past. We're starting from scratch
Yes,
to get a healthier
huge.
relationship.
Yes, and it's a repairing. We
Yeah.
need to repair, and that takes time.
Yeah.
And being patient, and also trying to ask the right questions, not trying to put their nose in what they've done. Yeah.
As a sex therapist slash mom, you have kids, right? There will be a time when you will have to have like the talk. How, like, are you even already talking about it with your kids, kind of making it a bit more normal than the average parents who just want to be like, nope, until, you know, the kids hit puberty and it's like, yeah, here's a condom, here's a birth control.
Yeah, definitely. I'm already talking about it in the sense of emotional intelligence, giving them space to tell me how they feel, being able to express themselves. That's all part of sex. And also naming the right physiology. So that is your vulva. It's not your vagina.
Okay.
That is your penis. It's not your zizi, you know? So that if there is anything that happened, or if they want to do something with those parts of their bodies, they have the right words around it. So that's where I'm at right now. My kids are small. They're 3 and 6. I have a stepson who's 14, and we're definitely in that zone right now. And I am doing my best to know him, let him know that I'm there for him. But shame is a really big thing. So
Amongst teenagers?
and just amongst people in general with sex. So not forcing people to talk about stuff if they don't want to. All you can do is be there and bank on the fact that the relationship is a healthy one, that they're going to want to come to talk to you. And if they don't want to come to talk to you, that there are men or women in their life who are safe, who they could talk to that about. That's one of the main issues right now. We see author Sam Galloway talks a lot about this, that the anti-fragility movement, where boys aren't allowed to talk to other role model men. There's not any kind of safe place. There's not the forums for boys to talk to older men in a healthy way about their emotions don't exist anymore. And so there's a real gap for learning that these boys have. And it's a big problem.
What would you say to the young Jessamy who just, you know, starting a relationship and then a sexual relationship? I will start with myself and I would say, hey, Camille, birth control is not the only way. Because I think that back in, you know, early 2000, when you had maybe like heavy cramps and stuff like this, or just acne, they would always prescribe a birth control. And it took me more than 15 years to realize that not only was it suppressing my ability to have a kid, but it was also suppressing my sex drive. And those are the things that maybe people don't know about. But, you know, sometimes you would go to the sex therapist thinking you have a problem, but you don't. It's just that birth control is literally not making you want to have sex with your partner, although you really love them, you know? So sometimes the issue is literally in front of your face and you don't know. So I would say that to the younger self. I would also tell her, like, empower yourself when it comes to contraception. It's not just the man who has to come with condoms. You can choose the condoms that are the best for you, and vice versa. You can discuss it with your partner. You can bring lube. Oh, no, you can bring lube.
Bring the lube.
What about you, Jessamy?
I think I would tell myself how much of the sex that you're having is performative, so that you get the feeling of being chosen, and how much of it is because you actually want to have it. Like, are you enjoying this, or is it just making you
That's deep. Continue.
I mean, I look back and I'm thinking, wow, that was a lot of sex young. How'd that go for you?
What's long? Haven't we said that there's no normalcy in sex?
In terms of young? I said, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, young.
But
A
what
lot
is
of sex
young?
young. 14.
I've seen worse.
Yeah, I mean, worse, it's just developmental. Like, I actually have quite a positive relationship to that relationship that I was in when I was having sex at that age. But I think I didn't know what I was trying to get from it,
Yeah.
you know? So, like, I guess it felt like it was something that I was doing because I wanted to, but I don't know if I actually wanted to. So that's what I would tell
I
myself.
mean, for sure, only you can know now with the eyes that you have right now, and also as a therapist. But I would also say that to my little Camille, like, girl, you're not into that guy. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But it's like you want to be kind of loved. And since we told that earlier, that men think in order for them to love you, they need to have like sex with you, then maybe that's the correlation that sometimes we have. So yeah, I would say really focus on yourself first. But I was a late bloomer though. I was a late bloomer, so
Yeah.
I had time to think
Yeah.
about all those
Yeah.
things.
I think it was also like an outlet for freedom. Like, you don't
Yeah.
have a lot of freedoms at 14.
No, I
And,
know.
you know, at all, right? And so, you know, today we see kids with phones. That's where their freedom is coming from. And I think back in those days for me, freedom was coming from how I used my body. So I would tell her that. And I would also tell her that she can enjoy sex. She can enjoy being intimate with somebody without have to have sex.
100%. And also, I mean, you would say it better than me, but sex is not just penetration.
No, it's not just about orgasm. And I was faking orgasm all the time. Big time. Because I didn't know. And then when I had an orgasm, I was like, oh.
Okay. Since I was a late bloomer, I think that I kind of had the opportunity to know my body first. So I knew what would arouse me. I was not faking it, girl. I
Yeah.
was like, good time.
I think having faked orgasms, you then realize that the relationship is what's making you fake the orgasm. You're like, I'm trying to please you. I'm trying to people please. And then that becomes negative when it comes to your relationship to sex.
I agree. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I want to like finish this podcast knowing a bit more about the news because I reckon you sent me an email talking about some workshops in Paris.
Yes, I have workshops coming up in June that are for my existing clients, and then I'm going to roll that out to the fall.
Wait, maybe we're not gonna say that because I'm an existing client, but like just say you have a workshop and then if they
Okay, yeah. So I've got workshops coming up in June that I'm going to also have in the fall. And then I also have some exciting projects coming up with some big names in the business of sex therapy in France and in the States. So
super happy for you. Thank you so
you.
much for taking 2 hours of
You're
your time to be
welcome.
here.
Thanks for having me.
I can't wait to hear about the feedback, but I'm sure they're gonna be great. And if ever I come back,
Yes.
and would you want to do that
Of
again?
course, with pleasure.
Okay.
So much pleasure.
Okay,
It was
and
so
then
much fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun. The studio is amazing. Let's take pictures now. But yeah, thank you for everything.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.